Thank you for tuning in to Homeschool Homesteaders. Today I'm going to show you a video of how I turned my raw land into a garden. In the year 2018, my family and I decided we needed some more land, so we bought this homestead in the middle of nowhere, state of Minnesota. This is the land, how it looks, where we plan to build our garden. And as you can see, raw land. This had nothing but waist-high weeds. And so it's going to be converted into a garden. My goals are to make a tall fence around the garden. I'm going to utilize as much natural material from my land. I'm going to try to make this as cheap as possible. And I'm going to work during the winter time or during the cold weather. So during the summers, I could concentrate on planting. So I have a lot of dead trees on my land. As you can see, some are already knocked over. Here I have a string tied up to a dead tree that is leaning over my shed. My goal is to cut it and make sure it falls away from the shed. So I'm probably going to pull the string. So here you have, so I made a few cuts. And now I'm running to the spot where the string is tied up, and I'm going to pull on it. And hopefully pull on it, and the tree will fall my way, not towards the shed. So here is another tree that I'm cutting down. I'm not going to go into much details, but you get the idea. You climb the tree, tie a piece of string, tie the string away from the shed, cut it and go pull on it, and hopefully it falls towards you and not towards the shed. And I did that about 100 times throughout the winter months. These two tools will be your best friends throughout the process. Basically, once the logs are cut down, you will score them. If you're going to do 3 cross beams, which I did, you're going to do 3 sections or 3 sets of scoring. And once you do that, you take the sledgehammer and the broken axe handle and you pound them out so you have an opening. This is how I eventually started to do it. But at first I did the pencil chiseling thing, which I will show later in the video, but this is where the 2x4s and the 2x6 will sit, and other cross beams. Digging in the frozen ground is no fun, especially during the winter times and when you had to probably dig about 50 holes, but this is how I put the post into the ground. Here, this is the cross beams. Once again, I chopped down skinnier trees, everything dead. I also did some splitting, like the split rail, like Abraham Lincoln would do. I'm not going to show a video because it was very time consuming. I had no clue what I was doing, but I think I did a semi-good job. And so basically, yeah, you just put them on and nail them. Each fence segment is about 10 feet long, but you still have to measure so you could get the exact size for the beams to go across. The next video is my little helper helping me split logs, and she got a boo-boo. As you notice, winter is over, spring is upon us, snow is beginning to melt. I dug a whole bunch of post holes in the frozen ground. You could do it in the wintertime. And so here I just put up a whole bunch of logs, which I cut all for free, just a lot of elbow grease from my property. And yeah, this is what you're going to get. So I just have to put some cross beams all around the fence, put some kind of netting on, and hopefully get things going. Here the snow is completely melted, but this is how I started out with the cross beams. I would sharpen the edge like a pencil, stick them into the holes that I carved in each post, and this was very time consuming, so I gave up eventually and switched to a different method that you probably saw in earlier clips or the future clips will show you. This is what I mean by switching. My wife wanted the garden this spring, so she just felt sorry for me and told me to go buy some 2x4s, 2x6 to use as the cross beams. So going from a free garden, now I have some extra expenses that I did not consider. But overall, it does look good. Now here you could watch me suffer by putting on the net. This net is about 6 feet high. I think it goes 50 feet. I had to buy a total of 4 of them, and they're only about $50 per roll. But as you can see, I did the garden pretty much myself. So just take a staple gun hooked up to a compressor and staple the net to the fencing. And overall, it took a long time, but this will keep the deer and the rabbits away and any other critter that might try to go through the fence. Now you may wonder, why do I have a big long clip about me struggling with the fence? And that is to show you that there is a lot of elbow grease that goes into making this garden. But while you are watching me struggle, look at the scenery and let your imagination run wild and imagine how beautiful my garden will look once all the trees turn green in the spring summertime. So yeah, this is a perfect spot. You might think once everything turns green, I might not have plenty of sun for my plants. But, you know, the sun comes from the south, and I should have at least 8 hours of sunlight for my plants. Yeah, some parts will be shady, but overall, this is the best spot for the garden on my heavily wooded lot. and you continue all across the garden. Now I included this clip to show you that I started making raised beds with some leftover logs. Also, the openings in the fencing is for the future gates, and I'm planning to have 3 gates at this garden. Here I have a close-up of what the staple gun does to the fencing. So it just drives it into the beams or logs, and it's basically impossible to rip out. You will pretty much have to take some wire clippers and clip the fencing. Also notice the little raised beds that I did along the border of the fencing. Even planted some plants, and so yeah, it's looking really good. Here we have springtime, and so planting is probably about a month away, maybe 3 weeks away. So my kids are outside because the weather is warmer. Here I'm making raised beds out of the extra 2x6. And once again, I was going to make raised beds using logs, but my wife just told me, just go buy yourself some lumber. And so here I bought some lumber, making raised beds, and hopefully planting will start in about 3 weeks. Also, I had to do a lot of leveling, which I did all with a shovel. Any stump I removed. I did not show me removing stumps in this video, but they were all taken out with a shovel. With it being spring, I could easily turn over the dirt with my shovel. So once the raised beds were built, here I am just digging around, trying to get as much of the roots out. Noticing how rich my soil is, so my first year I should have very good crops here. And I know my rubber boots are cool, but that's the only way to work in this wet environment. These retaining blocks were also free. The previous owner, he built a project in the back of the house. I removed it and used the blocks as a retaining wall and raised bed. So finally, this is somewhat of a completed project. I have the gate in. We're going to open up the gate. And look at the before picture. This was the area before. And now look at the final completed product. I'm going to start planting soon, and you should see my plants in probably part 2 of this video. So if you are interested how the garden looks fully bloomed, watch part 2.